The sense of wanting to change things. That was the most important thing in my mind. Now come on, Vidal. Pull yourself together. You know what you're capable of, and you get on with it. Katya was only 33. Unfortunately, drugs hit her at an early age. A little generosity is good for one's soul.
How did you get started as a hairdresser?
Ooh.
Do you remember those days? A long time ago.
Mother. That she had a premonition. The war's on. We're sleeping in shelters. And it was that whole, you know, the
terrible time in London. This is London, right?
London. London, England, yeah.
Right.
And she took me by the scruff of the neck to see a man called Adolf Cohen in Whitechapel Road.
Oh, and we have a picture. There's the storefront of Adolf Cohen.
Yeah, Adolf, yeah.
So what's the most important aspect of being a great hairdresser? You went to work at Adolf's, at Mr. Cohen's salon.
Well,
and how long did you stay there?
I was a shampoo boy.
Oh.
And no education, of course. I was 14 years old.
Oh, really?
Oh,
14.
yes. 14 years old.
But Mom thought it was better to put you to work than to have you sort of wandering around in that terrible time.
14 years old was a school-leaving age in England at that time. One day he said to me after about 6 months of scrubbing floors and scrubbing heads, he said, pop down to Roughton House, which was a place just down the road in Whitechapel where the people who had no jobs, you know, people who were down on their luck, layabouts, whatever. He said, go and get yourself a model. So I went down there and this enormous man was at the door. And the first thing he said, are you the young limey that's going to cut this fine Irishman's hair, you know?
Oh, him? His hair?
His name was his full name, full title, Dr. Shaughnessy. Well, Dr. Shaughnessy in the next year came every month. And it was quite marvelous because I never knew anything about Beckett and Joyce and Synge and all these wonderful writers. He was getting a haircut. I was getting an education.
Did Adolf let you do it for free? Or did he pay?
No, free.
Oh, free.
But he'd always say, next time you'll get a big tip.
From there, you went on to develop a personal haircutting style unequaled since. I can't imagine. I don't know anybody else who really became so, their styling became so iconic. And we have some of the hairstyles that Vidal created. Who is this?
Oh, that's Grace Coddington. She's the big lady at Vogue now.
With the big red hair?
Yeah, that's her.
Oh my God, that's Grace Coddington who collects cats. She was on our show. I hope you remember her. But boy, she came to you.
She's something else.
Yeah.
She walked in as a waif, 18 years old.
And this is called a 5-point.
A 5-point card, yes.
Why?
Because there are 2 points at the sides and 3 in the back.
5-point haircut.
Yeah.
Very geometry-like. Now, who's this?
She was my girlfriend for about 3 years.
Oh.
That's why you can only see one eye.
And you're hiding her. That's called a line bob?
It was a short back, long front.
Did she like it?
Martha, she liked it. She was,
And this one?
Maggie London. Oh, that's Nancy Kwan.
Oh, Nancy Kwan. It's some asymmetrical bob.
Yeah.
So you knew all the names, asymmetrical, 5-point. I mean, you knew.
Well, we made the names up.
Oh, you made them up?
Of course.
Oh. What about this? The quiff. That's called.
I can't take, it's
Looks
beautifully
like
done.
Cupid.
But Christopher Brooker, one of my top stylists, did that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, and this one is so beautiful too.
Well,
Another asymmetrical bob.
well, Danae Brooke, I cut one side like this, and she said, I've changed my mind. Oops.
There you go. She changed
And
her mind.
She held her hair. She said, I've changed my mind. So I said, so have I. I'm going to keep one side long. And it worked.
And then while Mia Farrow was arguing with Frank Sinatra, and she got so angry, she cut her hair all off?
She ripped into it somewhat, yes. And then called me and said, Vidal,
Fix me.
I need rehabilitation. Rehabilitation,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
She was most persistent. She said she had a premonition that I should be ahead of her. Now you got to remember, it's middle of the war. In Britain, the war was from 39 to 45. So we're talking about 41, 42. German Air Force is bombing every night, and you're sleeping in the shelters, which is the underground. And she said, this will be good for you. Learn a trade, learn a craft. Okay, Mom. I did what, you didn't argue with your mother in those days.
And you started out as a shampoo boy, so how does it feel to start out as a shampoo boy and become what you are now?
I was a shampoo boy and not a particularly good apprentice. There were many apprentices in the salon, and I was just average. I wasn't anything special. I didn't, when I first went in there, it wasn't because of the love of hairdressing. I knew nothing about hairdressing, and it wasn't my first choice. The girls were pretty.
That helps.
And it helped.
In the very beginning of the movie, you're compared to Einstein and the Messiah. How does it feel to be compared to such iconic names?
That was ridiculous. I don't know who wrote that. But I'd love to take it as a compliment, but Einstein is so way above anything I did. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the Messiah, we don't know if there is one, so,
Right.
yeah.
In the documentary, it talked a lot about you being in an orphanage. Do you think that your tough childhood impacted you?
I think it helped me tremendously because you either gave in or you utilized the energies you had to overcome the difficulties. And if you could do that, I think it was a great help, especially the disciplines that I learned at the hairdressing salon. At the beginning, we didn't know that we were doing that, except in '54 when I opened my first salon. I said, look, we've got to change the craft. Go to Chicago, Michigan Avenue, and see the buildings. Absolutely splendid. Hairdressing is way behind. Pretty, nice, but we've got to change it. And it took 9 years of training people, having a wonderful team around me, and within 9 years we'd gone from hairdressing to hair cutting, color, and cut and perm with no setting.
Right.
I mean, it was total change, and it was very exciting, but it was gradual. I didn't get up and say, well, today I'm going to do this. It had to come, possibly it was cerebral. I think a lot of it was from the gut, the feeling of trying to do something that was special and different. The only thing I regret is not having what you're having, is 4 years in a great college. Because that must expand the mind to bringing more knowledge. You know, it obviously works that way. and if you don't waste the time at college. But you become autodidactic, and you learn as you go along. I've had a fascinating journey. There was a time when I looked in the mirror and said, is this all happening to me? It can't be. It's too good to be true. You know, it was that good. And I'm very thankful for it. You know, it's very humbling, really. If I believed in something, I'd go straight for it. If it wasn't successful, or when I could always go to Barclays Bank and borrow some more money, just really lack of fear, go for it, make it happen. You know, in every craft, they always say someone comes along who does something very different. Well, that's it. Nothing else can be done. But there's always something. There's always somebody with a new idea, a sense of creativity, you know, vision. If you do something and you do it well, you're still looking, well, can I do this again? Can I improve on it? There was a fascination that came with hair, although at the very beginning I didn't want to have any truck with it at all. But eventually a fascination grew, because it is the only substance that grows from the form, human form, that you can cut shapes and angles and do wonderful things with. When you looked at architecture and sculpture, and you looked at, you know, great buildings, and you thought, my God, hairdressing, we're so far behind. So there was a need to have change in hairdressing, and there was also a need for a respect, which we had to develop. In other words, you can't ask to respect somebody if they come to work in dirty old jeans and a torn shit t-shirt. So my guys wore three-piece suits. They really did, and in the summer they could take the jacket off, but they had the waistcoat on underneath. And they really looked the part. And slowly but surely I think we've gained some respect. I don't think I was a superstar, I was more of a dictator. I didn't want to do any of the old work, and I just wanted to experiment all the time. It did take 9-10 years to go from hairdressing as it was to the 5-point cut on Grace Coddington. So we were always experimenting in the sense to get the next look, the next line. There was one woman who came in and wanted an Anne Sheridan quiff and a DA, which was a duck sauce. Exactly. And I said, I don't do that kind of work. She said, you'll do it because I want it. And I said, no, I won't, but what I'll do is get you a taxi and send you to a friend of mine who does that kind of work. There's a pride in being part of London, being part of that scene. Well, a humble pride, put it that way. But we used it. I was at the theatre all the time.